will get this going, and I've started the recording. So if anybody has any questions, again, please pop them into that chat feature. I'm going to hand this over to Karen to tell us a little bit about how this fits into our education mission at the center. We'll pass it on to Amy after that to give some introduction to how this fits in with the department's goals and priorities for this area. And then Shelby and Amy will also give some great highlights of some of the critical species that we're going to be looking for through this project, the invasive species, some identification tips. And then Shelby will dive into the iNaturalist app itself and how you all can help with that. So I'll hand this over to my friend Karen.
Hey everybody, it's so good to see all your faces. It's been so long. So our mission at the National Bighorn Sheep Center is to educate people about wildlife and wildlands. And we all know that good habitat is extremely important for our bighorn sheep and for other wildlife. Invasive species such as cheatgrass and some others that Amy will tell you about can lead to poor habitat and have a big effect on wildlife in our area. So we are excited to be able to work with our partners in agencies such as the Game and Fish to help preserve habitat for wildlife. We heard a lot from people at the annual meeting and the collaborative meetings that people were interested in helping and wanted to do something practical to help our bighorn sheep. So that's kind of where this idea came from, this interest in citizen science. And people wanting to get involved and help. So we partnered with Game and Fish to get the word out about this project. Even though these times are kind of crazy right now, this is a way that people can get involved with citizen science and help habitat managers in making decisions about habitat. And this project that Amy and Shelby will tell you more about will provide real life and real-time data for those managers so they can make decisions about habitat and hopefully get treatments out quickly. So one example is for a while there have been ongoing discussions of having a prescribed burn up on Torrey Rim, but cheatgrass grows really quickly after a fire. So Game and Fish needs to make sure that if there's not cheatgrass up there or wherever it is, it needs to be treated so that there's not a prescribed burn that actually makes the situation worse up there than it already is. And that's just one example. The area that this project covers is much broader than Torrey Rim, and Amy and Shelby will tell you more about that in just a bit. This is a long-term project. It's not just some quick, month-long thing. This is long-term. It's accessible to anyone, with a camera and a computer, and it's really an easy way for people to get involved, get engaged, and contribute to citizen science. So it's pretty exciting, and the app that Shelby is going to tell you about is it's a lot of fun to use for this project and just for other things. Easy to use, so hopefully everybody enjoys this little chat and gets out there and helps identify some of these invasive species. And Amy will tell you more specifically about the ones that they'll be looking for next.
Right. Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's really good to see you all again. And thank you for volunteering to help with this. We have been working on this for a while, and we're pretty excited about it to see how it works. And having all of you on this call is pretty awesome. The community of Dubois is amazing. So this was an action item that was identified in the Whiskey Mountain Collaborative Project, as Karen said, for us to develop some kind of citizen science where people could help us in the Bighorn Sheep mission. And so working with Shelby and Sarah, we identified iNaturalist as the platform we wanted to use to make invasive species observations that would get to us in real time so that we could get out there and treat those things. As Karen said, invasive species are one of the leading causes of habitat declines. And the Dubois area is actually very intact habitat, and we're so thankful for that. It's on the leading edge of a lot of these invasive species infestations. So the sooner we make those observations of invasive species, the quicker we can tackle them. And that is the one of the weed and pests missions is early detection and rapid response methodology. So you find those species quickly, and we're able to get out there and treat them quickly. And all of this will be closely coordinated with Fremont County Weed and Pest, because all of the land managers have contracts with Weed and Pest to help us treat those invasive species infestations. So please, as you're out and about, try to remember to use the iNaturalist app as much as you can. You can observe everything. You can observe wildlife, you can observe other plants, insects, fungi, everything in the natural world. And it's really cool. And you can see what other people are seeing in your area as well. Within our project, the Dubois Invasive Species Watch project, we would like you to only submit invasive species observations to the app, and Shelby will show you how to do that. One of the things that we have coming is a volunteer day on June 17th, where, as Karen mentioned, we are going to be doing an invasive species inventory on Torrey Rim ahead of a potential prescribed burn. We want to know if there's any cheatgrass up there so that the fire doesn't exacerbate a situation and damage some really important sheep winter range. So if you are interested in helping with that volunteer day on June 17th, Sarah has some kind of requirements for that. We will need people who can get up there on their own, either hiking or via ATV or pickup truck, and also have access to OnX maps so that we could load some grid information onto the map for you to use. So yeah, with that, I worked with Bob Finley at the Weed and Pest to identify some invasive species that are likely to be a problem in Dubois. And so I just want to give you some quick identification features of the species that we're really targeting. The first one is cheatgrass, and this is a biggie. It feels like it's taking over the world. It is, Shelby and I were out on the East Fork yesterday, and it's already up, it's already turning purple, and it's seeded out already this early. This is a plant that winters, it actually sprouts in the fall, and it has really small, soft, hairy leaves that you can see in the fall. It stays green over the winter, so sometimes if you see green grass in February and March, it may be cheatgrass. It has this nodding seed head, so kind of long seeds with long hairy awns that nod over at the top so that it kind of hangs down. And it, depending on the resources available to it, if it's a really rainy year, it can grow up to 1.5 feet tall. On a dry year like this year, it has the ability to seed out at a few inches tall and still put out seed. So this is one that you will find along roadsides very typically, and also in disturbed areas where there's been some kind of disturbance. There's a lot of it on Duncan Bench right now, and it's all headed out and ready to go. It turns purple. First it's green, then it turns purple, and then it turns brown. Like by the end of July, it's brown and shedding seeds. And if you walk through it, those seeds get stuck in your socks, and then you can, or in your shoelaces, and it's really easy to transport it to a new area. So we ask people to really be cognizant of that as they're hiking around in areas where there's cheatgrass. Next one, Sarah. So this is one that actually looks really pretty. The app the iNaturalist app calls it Balkan toadflax. A lot of people call it Dalmatian toadflax. I have heard it called butter and eggs before. It was introduced as an ornamental. You can see it's really pretty, bright and yellow. Looks like a snapdragon. I haven't seen this very much in Dubois. Bob told me that he's had a couple of observations in the past. One of those was right up on the top of Torrey Rim. In Montana, I know this grows on ditch banks, but down in like the Ferris and Seminole Mountains, it'll grow on dry hillsides, so it's pretty adaptable. Yeah, and really identifiable. So one thing I should mention is Shelby and I put instructions on how to use the app and also some identification pictures on flyers at several of the trailheads and at the entrances to our habitat units. So if you're out and about, try to look for those. Okay, next one, Sarah. Broadleafed pepperweed is what the iNaturalist app calls this weed. Weed and Pest calls it perennial pepperweed. I've seen this one mostly in riparian areas, but it can grow on dry hillsides also. I saw this on a road going up to Sheep Ridge right in the middle of the road. So it's adaptable as well. It gets pretty tall. I've seen it get, waist high or so. It's biennial. It starts as just those basal leaves right on the ground. And then in its second year, it sends up this big seed head with white flowers. And the white flowers are kind of all just on the top. And when it dries out, it maintains those kind of flowery looking seeds right on the top. And when you bump it or your dog bumps it, it goes right, it can spread right then and there. And it spreads really well, like in a golden retriever coat. So yeah, be watching your dogs and your, pant legs and shoelaces for seeds when you're moving around in the country. Next one. Creeping thistle, or is what the app calls it. Canada thistle is what most people around here know it as. This is a perennial plant, so it comes back year after year. It has those really pokey leaves. This one's really common in riparian areas. Jeff at the Forest Service told me that he found a big patch of it on the Glacier Trail. So you can find this anywhere. It's a little bit harder to treat than some of the other things because it's a perennial. It gets that really telltale purple fluffy flower and then a fluffy, really fluffy white seed head. And it's another one that can spread really easily, attaching to critters. Heart-potted hoary cress is what the app calls this one. A lot of people call it white top in this area. I expect it's probably fairly common right around town in Dubois. It is here in Lander anyway. It also gets that flat-topped seed head. It doesn't get as tall. This one usually only gets, a half a foot tall, maybe up to a foot tall, and it grows in really dense patches like you can see on the left there. And yeah, the one place I have seen this in Dubois that is problematic is right along the highway at Red Rocks. But I imagine it's around town also. It usually likes wetter areas, but it's also another fairly adaptable weed. A lot of times around ditches and irrigated fields, you'll find this one, and once you see a patch of it, you'll recognize it for sure. Spotted knapweed. So this one is not hugely common in Dubois from what I understand, but the Weed and Pest found a skeleton of this floating in the East Fork. So they know that there are patches upriver somewhere. So if you are spending, and they're really keen to know where this one is. If you're hiking around or fishing on the East Fork or Wiggins Fork or on Bear Creek, be looking for this guy so that we can figure out where that patch might be. This one gets fairly tall, probably about knee height or so. It has those kind of black spots on the underneath the flower, and that's why it's called spotted knapweed. And then it has this tufted purple flower on the top. We also have Russian knapweed, which looks very similar, but it doesn't have those black spots just below the flower on the sepals. So this one isn't quite as bushy as Russian knapweed, but it looks somewhat similar. They're both species of concern, so if you see either one, just take a picture and load it into iNaturalist for us. Next one. So this is the Russian knapweed. You can see the sepals on this guy are mostly green, and you can see it's a little bit bushier rather than tall and spindly, and it has that telltale purple flower again. This one is, it's really crazy on parts of the reservation, and Shelby and I noticed some really big patches along the Wind River just near the highway. So I imagine you can find this in a lot of places. Musk thistle, this is another one of those really pokey plants. This one gets really tall. I've seen it get, 4 or 5 feet tall even. And that giant purple flower can be like even 2 inches in diameter. So it's a big fluffy flower. This one is hard to miss. And it has really long spines. It's a biennial. So it starts out as a rosette, just some basal leaves on the ground. And then its second year is when it shoots up the flowers. And if you are able to chop that rosette, or even chop the plant off when it gets tall and cut the seed heads off, you've removed a massive seed source. So this is one that can grow in riparian areas, but it also really likes fire. So it's one that will colonize after fire sometimes, and it goes up even to high elevations. But pretty recognizable, and not terribly difficult to control once we've identified the locations. Oxeye daisy is a weed and pest priority plant in the Wiggins Fork drainage, and we have a current treatment program going on along the Wiggins Fork and the East Fork. So if you spot it in those areas, please let us know and we'll get those treated right away. And it just looks just like a daisy, and it spreads very quickly. So it's another one that we want to identify and get treatment on as soon as possible. You'll typically only find this in the riparian areas or near to a water source. And then leafy spurge. I imagine most of you know what this one looks like. I don't know if you have this around Dubois, but it's crazy here in Lander and in the Poposia watershed. It starts out looking like that center picture, kind of reddish green linear leaves, and then it'll get that greenish yellow cup-like flower on it. This one is really hard to control. Even with repeated herbicide treatments, it spreads quickly and it's hard to kill. So if you see this guy, let us know as soon as possible and enter it into the app so that we know right where it is, so that we can hit it early. I think, is that all? Yeah. So this is the introduction to the app. The page looks like this when you open the app to our project, and has this information. It's part of the Whiskey Bighorn Sheep Management Plan. This video of the training will be posted on the Whiskey Mountain Bighorn Sheep Plan page on the Game and Fish website. Sarah will also send it out. But please and thank you for being part of the Citizen Science Project. This will be, we know how much you guys get out and about in the country where you live and love it. And we want to keep it the beautiful place that it is. So your help is huge. And thank you. I guess that's all I have, Sarah.
Great, Amy, thank you. I'll move on to Shelby's section now, where she'll dive into how to use iNaturalist, the app. And just a quick reminder, if you have any questions that are on your mind from all those weeds and which one is which, please feel free to put them in the chat or jot them down and save them till the end. And we'll move forward with Shelby. There we go.
Great, thanks, Sarah. So like Sarah said, I'm going to get into the technology part of it. I'll go over how to download this onto your phone and your computer and how to start uploading onto our project area. So first, if you want to do it on your computer, you go to iNaturalist.org and just type that in, or on your phone, go to your app store. It should be Google Play, or if you have an iPhone, it might be a little different. You can even Google it on your phone and it should come up and you can just install it right then and there, which is really nice. Next slide, please. And then once you have gotten on there, either on the website or on the app, this is the screen that'll come up for you. And I know a lot of you have already created your own login, so that's great. But for those of you who haven't, you'll click sign up and all you need is an email address. So it's really easy. You can create whatever username you'd like. So if you'd like to be anonymous, that's okay, or you can get credit for it and add your username as your actual name, and then you just click that you're not a robot and create your account. And it's really that easy to sign up. And then, so once you're signed in to your account, this is what your phone screen is going to look like. And it's a little bit different if you have a Samsung or an iPhone, but it's generally the same screen. And the really important thing that you need to do right when you sign up is join our project. iNaturalist is a larger citizen science platform. So you'll be able to, you can upload anything. You can upload birds, you can upload any plant you want, but for our specific project, we're only looking for invasive species. So to be able to sign up for that, for this whole training, you go, if you have a Samsung, there's 3 lines in the upper left-hand corner of your screen once you're logged in, or 3 dots on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And you're gonna go ahead and click that. And then go to the next slide, please. And then choose projects. And then once you choose that, you'll be able to type in Invasive Species Watch, Dubois Invasive Species Watch. And if you go to the next slide, it'll show what it'll look like. Yeah, perfect. So, and you just click on that and it'll take you to this next screen and join. It's that easy, and you only have to do this once. So you sign in to your account, you click join, and then you're good to go. You're in our group. On this page, you can also look at news updates. So we've been doing a couple journal posts, which has been really awesome. And if we're hosting any events, like the walk that Amy was talking about on June 17th, any updates we can add to that as well. Next slide, please. So now that you're all signed up, you can start making observations. And it's pretty simple. It really helps, and it's really handy if you turn the location on your phone. I know some people don't like to do that, but it does really help, because if you are not in service, you can take a photo without any cell service, and it will automatically take a GPS point that's associated with that photograph, so that when you download it into our project, you don't have to have a GPS or anything or try to figure out where that location is. It's automatically associated with that photo. So that's a really nice feature that they have. And we do require that you have a photo associated with every observation that you make and a location. So that's really important that you do that. You can also use a GPS unit or look at a map and drop a point for your location, but this is just really helpful for that. And then once you have a photo taken of the plant that you would like to add to our project, you, depending on if you have a Samsung or an iPhone, in the app, you will add the little plus sign or click observe, which is the little camera, and that'll take you to the upload screen. Go to the next slide, great. And then you choose the little camera button and you can add as many photos as you'd like, so you can get as in-depth. You type in the species that you think it is, any notes, so if you'd like to record the patch size, and the really important thing is that you add to our project. So you've already joined it, that's what I just showed you when you typed it in and clicked join, but this is, you're now adding a specific observation to the project. So you just type in Dubois Invasive Species Watch. If you type in Dubois just that far, it should just pop up and you click on it and then it's added to our project. And also, a good thing to note is if you don't know what species that is, that's okay. You don't have to add a species name. As long as it's added to our project, Amy or I or Sarah or even Karen, we can go in there and we can add an ID. And if you're not sure, if it's one of the species on our list, you can still add it and we can come in and look at it and you can just write a note to us in that little notes section. So that's really helpful. Or also, like Amy was saying, some of the species have multiple names and that can be a little confusing for you. If you type in like white top and that doesn't necessarily come up, it should come up with like the closest thing to that, and it recognizes that that's like the same species. So that's really helpful. And sometimes if you add a really good photo, it'll even suggest IDs for you and help let you compare different photos that are already in iNaturalist. So it's really helpful for species ID as well. And then once you've entered all of that information and added it to our project there at the bottom, you click submit and it just goes to us and we have all that information, which is really neat. So now we'll get into doing it on your desktop. So that was just within the app on your phone, but you do have the option to upload on your desktop, on your computer, by just going to iNaturalist.org, logging in, signing up. And then from your home screen on iNaturalist, in the top right-hand corner, there's just a little green button that says upload. And so you'll click that and choose your file. And you can just choose whatever files off your computer. If you downloaded something from camera, some cameras have GPS units in them. So that's really nice. Your photo might already have a location associated with that. And then once you choose your photo, you can go to the upload page and it has all the same information. It'll automatically just take you to this page once you've added your photo. You add your species, make sure that you have a location and a photo. Those are the two most important things. And then make sure that you add it to our project. So if you go to the next slide, there's a little button that says add to project, and it's the same thing as in the app. You just type in Dubois Invasive Species Watch, and once you hit submit, it'll be sent to us, and we'll have that location of whatever invasive species you've just observed. And then this is what our projects page looks like on your desktop. It's a little bit different on your phone, but at the bottom there you can see all of our journal posts. We have a map of our project area, and you can see where people have observed things and what their observations are in those little columns there at the top. And you can see who's also in the project. So you can see what your friends are observing and submitting to us, which is really cool. And you can see it in real time. So say you're on one mountainside and somebody else is on another, you can see them submitting observations, which is really cool. And then the third option to add an observation to our project is to click add observation. And when you do that, it'll take you to this screen, which is very similar to the other ones. It has all the same information, but this screen will allow you to just drop a point on our map of where you saw something. So that's a really nice feature. And you also need a photo your location, and then it has a really big box for descriptions, so you can really get into it and let us know what exactly you saw. And with that, I think we'll take some questions here.
Yeah, thank you, Shelby. We do have a few questions posted from people. I'll just run through these in order. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen just for a sec, go back into this so people should be able to see each other again. One of the questions from Kathy, and it may have been answered here, as far as what areas are you focusing on for these invasives? Those maps that we're just seeing, and I'll let Amy and Shelby answer this more detailed, but those maps that you saw go from all the way into the East Fork, all the way up into the high country on the wind side. So we're not just focused on Whiskey Basin or Torrey Valley, like they were mentioning. It's this whole upper Wind River Valley as a project area. Amy or Shelby, if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we did draw a specific project area that is kind of associated with the game and fish habitat units, but it also goes onto the forest on both sides, both the East Fork side and the Whiskey side. You do not have to be inside that project area to make an observation to our project. If you see something outside of that project area and you just want us to know, like you're up somewhere cool in the forest and you see a huge patch of white top, you can put that on there and I'll send those observations to the Forest Service or to Weed and Pest and let them know. I also wanted to point out that if you see something that you don't know, but it doesn't really seem to belong, it's not a wildflower you know, it's not a grass that you know, it's something that just sticks out and doesn't really belong, please submit those as well, because we really want to know when new invaders come into the area too. You guys know that country, you know what looks out of place there. So if you see other things, add those as well. And regardless of the area, whether it's inside of our polygon or not, just add them and we'll get them to the right people.
Another question, this came from Michelle, and it's just larger out to the group. When you go to pull this app up on your phone, sometimes there's a couple different iNaturalist related apps, and the one with the little green bird icon is the one that you're looking for. So that's the one that you're going to be using for this project. So I hope you found that, Michelle. And then a good question, those darn oxeye daisies, are there other flowers in this area that look like oxeye daisies? Amy, maybe take that one.
Yes, there's several species of what are called fleabane. They're generally really a lot smaller and grow much closer to the ground and are generally not in the riparian area. But the oxeye daisy, you'll know it when you see it. And right now, the only places that we know for sure that we have that are on the East Fork and on the Wiggins Fork. So yeah, even if you see something that looks like oxeye daisy, but you're not sure, take a picture and send it, and we'll make the determination of whether it is or isn't. It has that kind of frilly looking leaf. And we did put pictures of these at some of the trailheads. We handed out some little weed ID books at the last annual meeting. These species should be in there. I will try, yep, I see you've got yours, that's awesome. And I'll try to see if I can get more and I'll drop them off to Sarah at the Sheep Center for folks if they would like one of those.
Great. There is a printout that has the details of how to use the iNaturalist. I will send that again to everybody. This was a question again. And we also, these are posted at the front of the center here. We also have them inside the center. We'll make them available on our website with this posting as well. So if you didn't follow all those steps that we walked you through, that Shelby walked you through, there are some resources that we'll make sure you have after the fact too. So some easy to go to guides. What happens after we submit an observation? Should we try to mitigate, take the tops off thistle, etc.?
Boy, if you want to do that, please do. Yeah, I know Lynn, when he's out walking around, he carries bags and he pulls cheatgrass and he chops heads off of things. So if you want to do that, if you see just a few sprigs of something here and there, yeah, carry a little plastic garbage bag with you and chop off the heads, but it becomes exhausting very quickly. I do it everywhere I go. I see weeds and I'm constantly pulling them, and if that was all I did, I could spend the rest of my life doing it. Otherwise, once you make that observation, I'll get a location of those things, and I or some game and fish person or someone from Weed and Pest will go check on those and ground truth them. Like I said, Dubois is still fairly intact, so I know we'll get a lot, but hopefully it's not too overwhelming. The cheatgrass is the biggie. That's the one we're really scared about, because there really is not a great treatment methodology for that yet.
2 questions on how tall that oxeye daisy is.
I think it's usually about mid-shin, so it doesn't get super tall, like below knee level, I would say, and it grows in a pretty decent clump. There's another plant that I think it's called woody aster, that kind of looks like a daisy, but that's another one that'll be growing up on the dry hillsides, whereas oxeye daisy will almost exclusively be in the riparian areas. But like I said, if you see something that looks like it, take a picture and submit it, and we'll go from there.
As far as Blair asked a question on getting a flyer last year asking report spotted knapweed. They found some, reported it, but have not been contacted since. Should we follow up, or are they just not working on it yet this year? And Blair, that may be a question if you reported it to the Weed and Pest, or who is the entity you reported it to as well. That might be a part of the concern there.
Or if you still have the picture of it, Blair, and it's on your phone or something, if you wanted to upload it into iNaturalist to our project, we could go and check it out.
Yeah, I don't have a picture, but I know where it was. I might go back and see if there's still some there. Thank you.
Okay, that'd be fantastic.
So I got a private message from somebody, and I'm guessing other people might have the same question using the app, whether or not you can open up a map and choose your location from there on the app. And you can, I don't know if you can see my phone screen, that might be a little difficult to see, but the little location photo there, and then this is on the app, and then you'll be able to navigate out on the map. The map's not really loading now, but you'll be able to choose your location that way on your phone as well. So
just keep in mind that we need those locations to be as precise as possible, so that we can go back to it. Kathy, I see your question there about cheatgrass. Right now, we have several projects in place to try some different herbicides on cheatgrass. We will be doing this summer an aerial treatment on the Duncan Bench area using the newest herbicide as kind of a trial. It's called Esplanade or Indaziflam, and it's one of the better working herbicides that we have at our available for use right now. It can only be used really on private or non-federal lands. It's not cleared for federal lands, and it can't be used where there are livestock. And so the East Fork is a good place to start with that, because we do not graze those areas. And this is really the first large-scale trial in Fremont County of Esplanade. And so Aaron Foster with Weed and Pest and Shelby and I are going to set up some permanent monitoring transects to make sure that it works the way that people say it does. And we will let you know on that. We've used Plateau in the past. Plateau is another herbicide, and it has marginal success in treating cheatgrass and a shorter term success. The Indaziflam supposedly has a 5-year treatment window, whereas with Plateau, you're only getting shorter term control, like a year or 2. And no, it's not necessarily harmful to wildlife or livestock. It just, there are specific ways they have to treat these herbicides when using them in a livestock grazing situation. They have to have a specific label.
Another question on just kind of the big picture of why, like the impacts of cheatgrass on wildlife, as far as what is so bad about cheatgrass specifically. Is it bad for animals? That's just a kind of a bigger picture question to answer, Amy.
Yeah, so cheatgrass, it doesn't have much forage value. Early, when it's just those small, really soft green leaves, it may have some value, but it's so short at that point that a lot of things can't even get to it. But it turns brown really quickly, and it has those hairy, pokey seed heads, and nothing wants to eat it at that point. The larger picture impacts of cheatgrass on wildlife is that it displaces native vegetation, and it also increases fire frequency in a lot of habitats, at which point you start dropping things like sagebrush out of the system and native perennial grasses, and you get these monocultures of cheatgrass, which then is a really heavy fuel load for a lightning strike or a cigarette drop or that kind of thing, and you get fires a lot more frequently, which makes it really difficult for native vegetation to return to those systems. And so in Dubois, we are way ahead of the curve there. You know, we don't have those monocultures pretty much anywhere in that country yet. So if we can, you know, hit those areas where there are some cheatgrass before it starts looking like some other areas of Wyoming, will be doing all of us a favor. So that's why it's so important. That's why we're really targeting this Dubois country, because we're on the front of so many of these weeds.
I want to make sure we didn't miss anything if people didn't have a question that they wanted to post in the chat, but if you have a question that you want to raise your hand for, if anyone does have any other. Kathy, I'll just unmute you here and you can ask it right here.
Am I live right now? Can you hear me? Okay. Amy, I'm actually going to be working with Painted Hills, where Michelle and I live, on invasives. And behind my lot, there is a 3-acre tract of cheatgrass. And Amy Baker, who is the sprayer in our area, says it's the worst she's seen in the whole area. So it's an out-of-town landowner. He doesn't have a clue what's going on. And so we can't do anything at the moment, but we're trying to figure out how we can. I mean, it's a huge source of cheatgrass.
Yeah.
I fight it constantly on my lot. So,
is that something that you've talked to Bob about at Weed and Pest, or?
Yeah, we've been watching it expand.
Yeah, that's sad. And he's a non-resident landowner.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the toughest situations. I don't know.
We'll just keep in touch with that, but we'll try to keep you informed of what we're getting here, because we're probably not in your identified area. We're too far to the west, but we're a good source of cheatgrass, let's put it that way.
Right. Everything that walks across that is probably dragging seed up into the hills.
Yeah.
So those are the problem areas, you know.
Yeah, a lot of deer in the area, and we get bighorns down into that area too.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you.
Yeah, I would talk to Bob or Weed and Pest and see if they can send some information to that landowner. Probably the best people to get that landowner on board is the people who live around him. That's what we find, is that the neighbors who, you know, talk to them directly have a much better impact on them than government officials.
We'll stick Michelle on them.
That's right. Get them, Michelle.
Thanks, Kathy. It's a really good point. Michelle brings it up too. You know, a lot of the source for this is where there's disturbance, and that's in subdivisions, that's in the developed areas. And I know Cynthia and us were attacking things from different sides. And, you know, there's a lot of people in different areas that are conscientious of these efforts around Dubois, but the impacts are greater when you start seeing the bigger impacts in the larger habitat areas outside of Dubois. Any other questions people have, or things they want to, observations that you've seen, or things you want to just kind of add to the forum here? Okay. Again, we will be following up. Super grateful for all of you. Amy and Shelby, thank you so much for the insights and putting the project together. I know personally, iNaturalist, we learned about it at Teton Science School last fall, Karen and I, and we had a lot of fun with it there. I haven't used it as much as I thought I would since, but it's a really fun app to be able to utilize and get insights on all kinds of species. You can take even scat pictures and it'll help you ID even scat. So
And tracks.
And tracks, yeah. So it's a really fun app, and it has great implications with this project. I think it's honestly just touching the surface of what we can do with apps like this and citizen science as well. So yeah, I will be following up directly with all of you who participated today and signed up for this, as well as the people that weren't able to participate, sending you, yes, the instructions for the app, this recording once we get that up and loaded, and then if that does details if you want to sign up for helping on June 17th. And, you know, if you have questions as you dive into this, we are here to help and be resources. If it's something specific to weeds, we can get you in touch with Amy or Shelby, and something specific to the app, Shelby's a pro at it, so we might point you her direction. Karen and I are here to help too. So we hope that this expands wide and broad. You know, we will continue. This is just the start of it, and this is going to be a long-term project. So thank you so much for joining us, and we really appreciate all your participation. All right. Great,
Thank you, everyone.
Yay. I'll end it, and this will be available after. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.